Okay, perfect. Thank you. Take care. Thank you for your time. Nope, all good. Nope, that's it. That, I don't think so. I mean, how much are your AirPods? I need the new ones. No, just kidding. Mhm, mhm. Mhm. I'm not paying for that. If I need anything, I'll ask. I appreciate you. You too. Bye.
I wish I could get my hair as straight as yours. I tried it. That's the only reason it's as straight. You've been trying to try one. It's like, really? It was driving crazy with the 900. Yes.
So we typically sell off, we do sell off the goal, but we don't go away. That's been happening. But they're saying, get, 500 out there. That would shock me. Yeah. That's built into a lot of the rates that you're in California. Yeah, it's not for selling. That's the hard part, is like, pull all the other levers already, it's really about infrastructure issues and. Yeah, expensive stuff for the light service. Back when, I mean, not uncommon for cities, but like, holy moly. Like, we so progressed past that in the industry. It's just like, yeah.
I have nothing.
Okay.
I'm ready to go. Yeah, see it. This is one, this, anybody wants to debate how well the streets we are, there's a big county. Not doing anything, is it, other than recording miles for doing nothing.
It's.
Not even getting up to there. They won't take them.
I know I do your job at my new job.
Huh?
I do your job at my new job,
You do?
setting out an agenda for all this. I work for this nonprofit and I do the HR and like all that.
Oh, that's fun, huh?
Anyway, I feel like Donna and I click away.
How easy is it for that PowerPoint to get loaded up?
Well, it's loaded. Where are you gonna use it? Where are you gonna do it from?
I think there is probably easier, right?
I don't know why it's not there, huh?
Probably standing there.
It's already loaded.
Okay.
Are you going to the Air Force Ball?
I'll be in that Paso Robles now. I told Dan I can't go. It's all right.
Oh, we went back to the Air Force.
Yeah, Dan asked me to the table. Yeah, sorry. Yes, I got invited by the. I didn't say it. He asked me.
You got horse stuff?
I wear Paso Robles to the tournament, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Love that. Oh, that's such a great life.
It's a good life.
That is, no, it's so good. That's
Fun,
so
because,
good.
you know, I can kind of get the stem with them.
I know.
Start to leave. Yeah. Okay, but this.
Maybe a woman. Yeah.
Michelina. I hope.
Behind the chair.
Expect, well, by the way, the lady, like the name. Was you're the one in charge of the. His large feet included in my idea.
Oh, those shoes, that's what you see when you go to Iron Man in Hawaii. You see that shoes and they are body.
Yes.
I have to have that, I don't have the shaved body.
I've never seen anything like it before. I had to go in and phone it just so I could walk around.
And they were very happy and I go.
Oh, I like that.
We had 10%.
What size shoe do you wear?
After I go to
He has great
and they
shoes.
wanted to reach out. And I couldn't verify. So I said, "June."
I think I might.
Okay, I'll give you the name later.
Okay.
How are you, sir? How are you? It's like the same one. It was an end, I would say. Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the service. Thank you for meeting us. Followed by Toronto.
Miss Beautiful.
Hello, are you on that? Are you coming to the Air Force Ball?
The 14th.
Better be there.
And
Hello, City Attorney.
Hello, how you doing?
Good, how are you? Welcome aboard.
Well,
lady.
thank you so much. So,
We're gonna steer the course.
Welcome to June. Thank you for meeting us. Followed by Toronto.
I hope my partner doesn't expect me to buy another gown for her.
You're gonna have to, you know. You gotta compare.
Well, I think we
Good, how are
do.
you?
You have joined the meeting as an attendee and will be muted throughout the meeting.
Okay.
Does anybody
Welcome
else
to
where
June.
we spend our
Thank you
mission
for
is gonna be-
meeting us.
Sounds like you're gonna be a leadership captain. Yeah, you.
Well, you know, it's gonna be.
Enter your position on the followed by pound. Otherwise,
So I might as well look it up.
you have entered the meeting as a panelist. Attendees may now hear you speak. This meeting is being recorded.
Testing sound. Testing sound. All right, it looks like we have quorum at this time, but I want to check in on technical. Yeah, when you're ready. Okay, Councilmember Dawson, you can walk to the dais. We're having a technical issue at this time. Are we ready? Just checking? Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up from tech. And we're ready? Okay, council members, I'm gonna go ahead and begin, just checking in that we're all ready. Okay. All right. Thank you everyone for your patience. Calling the regular meeting of the Suisun City Council acting as successor agency to the redevelopment agency of the City of Suisun City and Housing Authority to order. Today is Tuesday, August 27th, and the time is 5:34 p.m. As a reminder, members of the public can participate in City Council meetings in person or remotely via Zoom by visiting our website and following the instructions on the agenda. If you'd like to do a remote public comment, you would press *9 by phone or raise your hand icon if using the web application. Members of the public can submit written public comments by emailing clerk@suisun.com by 4 p.m. on the same day as the meeting. For those in attendance, there are yellow speaker cards on the table near the entry of the meeting room and should be given to our city clerk. Meetings can also be viewed without participating remotely by viewing our live stream on our city website or on our city's Facebook page. I will turn it over to City Clerk Skinner for roll call.
Councilmember Dawson? Here. Councilmember Osum?
Here.
And Councilmember Paul absent. Vice Mayor Washington?
Here.
Mayor Hernandez?
Here. Before I continue, I do want to just quickly note that we are going to start implementing, and we can start practicing today, a voice vote for the clerk. I will request a roll call vote for the general item, though, for discussion, since that is a more sensitive topic today.
Madam Mayor, may I, it's not out of line, may I request that when, we do the vote, you generally will go back and say, motion passed or whatever. You could say motion passed, and if someone, votes no, if you could say with council member voting no, just to make sure that I've got that, I would really appreciate that assistance from you.
Making myself a note right now,
Okay.
and then, and I will note any who is, who dissents or abstains. Okay? And then, if for any reason, this is, everybody can provide us a little bit of grace. If at any point you're like, oh, can you pause? Feel free to do so.
Okay.
As we start implementing this practice.
All right, thanks.
From our norms and procedures, this came out as an opportunity for us to help start streamlining a little bit of our flow to make our meetings more timely. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to move on to Pledge of Allegiance and invocation. And we'll have Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Councilmember Dawson, and immediately following the invocation led by City Clerk Skinner. I do ask that you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you would like, please remain standing for the invocation.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Father, bless our endeavors in today's meeting. Guide us and enlighten our minds in our discussions. Help us understand each other and bring positive outcomes to our city. Amen.
Then we're going to go ahead and move on to approval of reordering of the agenda. Looking to see if anybody wishes to reorder any portion of tonight's agenda. Looking for lights, seeing none. Moving on to conflict of interest notification. Looking for lights to see if there are any. Seeing none. Moving on to reports, starting with our city manager, Pribula.
Nothing to report this evening, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to city attorney report with City Attorney Enright.
I have no report, but I just want to thank the council. I'm looking forward to the opportunity with working with all of you and working with the city of Suisun. So, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And for those tuning in, this is our city attorney's first city council meeting with us on the dais. Although he's been listening in for some time and was in the public at the last meeting, we are looking forward to working with you. Thank you. Okay. With that, we're going to go ahead and move on to public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak on any item that is not on the agenda, but is also under the purview of this council. As a friendly reminder, there's no back and forth discussion between members of the public and council. However, the chair has the purview to address a question, as well as the city manager or attorney, or can direct it for a future agenda item. We'll first go to those comments that have been submitted electronically, followed by public comment cards submitted by those present in council chambers. And then we will turn to members of the public on Zoom. I do see some members of the public. This would be the time that you would want to start raising your hand if you would like to make a general public comment. So I'll turn it over to City Clerk Skinner.
I have Donna LeBlanc, followed by Steve Olry.
Yay, happy almost the end of August. I'm gonna hope that there's no council meeting anymore in August. We have to stop meeting like this. My poor husband, I thought he was gonna have a heart failure when I said, there's a meeting tomorrow. And he's like, again? But anyway, it gets us out of the house, I guess. Welcome, Mr. Enright, for your first live in-person meeting. It's gonna be tame, I think. We don't have a lot of, stuff on the agenda tonight. I did want to remind everyone that iArt Suisun is happening September 7th, Joe Nelson Center, noon to 4 p.m. Got to be there. It's going to be some really good artists, really good crafters and vendors, and wonderful, amazing performances. So I hope to see you all there. Let's go.
Steve Olry, followed by Michelle Chavez.
Good evening, everybody, and especially to our new attorney. Welcome to the show. Tonight's meeting and economic developments have brought me into a rage that wants to resurface. Before I get started on that, I want to welcome again our 4 council members. I think with your 2 years seasoning, you guys were able to mature, grow into your position, see what was wrong and not wrong with the city. Every meeting, I want to praise you guys for your intervention, for your participation in this. Now, back to tonight. The rage comes up on me because George and I have been coming to these meetings for 5 years. We kind of saw this development unfold. I want to blame some of those. I don't know if Suisun's economic failures could have been totally avoided, but we could have had a much softer landing. If the last 2 mayors would have done something right 4 years ago, I don't think we would have been backed into a deep corner. I saw all the wrong, horrendous financial business decisions. And Mayor, you were a part of them. I think today, I'm not optimistic about a recovery. And I predicted this is going to fall on your reign, and you do bear a lot of responsibility for that. Going forward, hopefully you start doing some right things, listen to your council, work with your council, and I'd like you for the first time ever to take a lead in some code enforcement. Michelle, for the last year, has been complaining loudly, falling on your deaf ears, about Humphrey Avenue. You always find a way not to enforce. Everything begins and ends with the mayor of a city. It's not so much what you do, it's what you fail to do. All you got to do is kind of say it. There's a lot of jobs on the line with what you decide and who you favor. And I just think I would like to see you fill your shoes that you wear, and good luck to us all going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olry.
Michelle, followed by George Quinn.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start off by welcoming City Attorney Attorney Enright, thank you so much for being here, and I enjoyed looking at your law firm's website. It was refreshing to see that actually staff, their paralegals are on that website. I worked for Manat for many years, and you will definitely not see any of us over there as paralegals or even legal secretaries. I'd also
Michelle, I'm sorry, can you raise the mic just?
Oh, sure. I'd also like to thank for the public outreach by the members of the water board from the city. The attempts to inform residents and of the water rate increase and giving residents opportunity to comment and possibly affect change. Some of us did come, and others appeared via Zoom, and others unfortunately weren't there. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
George?
Good evening once again. Also would like to welcome the new city attorney, and really glad to see you here. I think you're going to be a big improvement over what we've had in the past, and that's much appreciated. Also, I'd like to agree with the previous speakers, with the exception of Steve said we've both been here 5 years. He's been here 5 years with me, but I've been here since 1997, so that's considerably more than 5 years. The other thing is that I went to the Board of Supervisors meeting today, and afterwards I stopped by the I think the name of the assessor's office on the second floor, and I looked in the garbage liens, and I'm sorry to say, Mayor, that there was still a listing for your residents, and if that isn't taken care of, I don't see why anybody should be willing to support paying more taxes or more fees, whatever you guys come up with to keep the city going. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, and when you're in office, you got to set the standard. You can't expect the public to do more than what you guys do, and really hope that Bill gets paid very soon, because otherwise it's really not a good showing, and I don't see either the tax measure or anything else getting passed. And the last thing I want to say is that the cost of overhead for the city really needs to be reduced. You guys figure out how to get some more money. You can't spend more than what you get on the long term, and it's a lot better to penny pinch at a time than it is afterwards when it's too late. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will note, I would appreciate an opportunity to cross-reference residence address, sir, because I think your information is not correct. And so I would love to have that conversation. Thank you. Do we have another speaker?
I'm sorry, no, George.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm looking to those online, and I do not see any hands raised at this time. So with that, that concludes public comments. So we're going to go ahead and move on to presentations and appointments, and we have none. So moving on to council comments, starting with Councilmember Dawson.
Thank you, Mayor. Not much comments tonight, but I just wanted to give a shout out to the Fairfield Suisun Rotary for the awesome fundraiser event that supported our local DFW chapters, and to the amazing hostess, Princess, Miss Washington, Vice Mayor. Thank you for inviting me. It was an amazing concert, and really had an enjoyable time, and appreciate all the work that you, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem as Rotary members do for the community. It's such a great group, and I was happy to be out there and support it this last weekend. Thank you.
Councilmember Osum?
Yes, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First, I'd like to re-welcome our new city lawyer. And what I liked about his last name is the word "enright." With that, how could we go wrong? And everything is right. Now, two things. One is we just completed the workshop, the first portion of the workshop for the Beautification Advisory Committee, and we might be ready to present recommendations to the council very soon on the first action plan portion. And the other thing is the office of Congressman Garamendi did a 3-minute video presentation with me as one of the ones giving a testimony with respect to the federal assistance services that they have provided for me and some other people that I recommended with them, specifically on the areas of problems with refunds with the IRS, Social Security system benefits, to which I personally experience how fast things are done. Because it took me 2 weeks for them to give me a call back regarding my complaint. When I submitted the request for assistance from the office of Congressman Garamendi, it only took 2 days, and the call that I received was, "We're calling you, sir, because of a congressional inquiry on my Social Security benefits," and that particular issue was settled within hours. So I would request us to let everyone know, those who may be having any problem with federal agencies, to reach out to the office of Congressman Garamendi, because they've got specialists for different federal agencies. Yeah, that would be my report for the evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Washington?
Thank you. So I want to thank the residents who I had the chance to meet with and talk with over the weekend, specifically around the concerns for the water rate increase. It's always good to have community engagement, even if you're the punching bag. It's important that we do hear out the complaints and concerns. That way we can at least do our job to alleviate some of what we're hearing. So I want to thank people who always reach out. It's always a pleasure to serve this city. I do want to note, I forgot to say it last week, but I had a really great stakeholder water meeting hosted by Supervisor Williams. In attendance, we had Fiona Ma was there, Garamendi, his staff from D.C. and local level. We had Bill Dodd, Chris Cabalden, who was up for election for Bill Dodd's seat, was there. I was there representing Suisun City Water Authority, as well as Greenbelt Alliance and Solano Sierra Club. And we also had Carrie Eaton there representing CISWA as well as SID. We had a really great planning trajectory meeting on what are we going to do both short-term and long-term. Of course, voluntary agreements are the goal because that's really the easy way out right now. But we're really looking at long-term, how can we help, protect ourselves from the jurisdictional rights of the water board. Looking at it also from, should they have as much power as they have over such decision-making. So it was a really great conversation. I'm really grateful for Supervisor Williams for setting that up. It was a really powerful meeting. Glad to see everyone come together for Solano County. We also had Farm Bureau representation, Chuck Wagner, the Vintners Association. Lisa Howard's amazing. She was there representing that group. So really, really great thought partners in how we can approach this holistically. So grateful for that. Tomorrow, I have the pleasure of hosting the Hidden Heroes event. Last year, Emily Corrin from the Sewer District won the award. We are awarding 3 new winners tomorrow. So really excited for that. If you're in Oakland, come by. I'll be representing Suisun City as well as Greenbelt Alliance in that capacity. So excited for that. They do a lot of work here locally. In September, Greenbelt Alliance is launching our Resilient Roots Climate Leadership Training Program. It's a 9-month cohort of current and future community leaders learning about the intersection of nature and climate adaptation and how they can get involved in their communities Right now, we are in need of a Spanish translator for 9 months. So if anyone is bilingual and has the capacity to serve, please reach out to me. It is a paid position. Happy to connect that dot. I was on the way home from dinner last night. It was super late, about 10 o'clock, and I saw Public Works and police on Sunset cleaning up a spill of a tree, it looked like. Really grateful for, on-call employees. So really want to shout out the people who worked tirelessly for Suisun. Without Measure S, that tree would have sat there and more incidences would have occurred. So grateful for the funding that we have through Measure S to address the needs of the city. We need Measure S to continue addressing calls such as those. So great example of that work. I want to apologize to Chief Roth because I was really excited about seeing the community service officer at Crescent. It's been a long time coming, so I want to shout him out because he's been doing the work behind the scenes to really answer the needs of the residents, like Ms. Donna LeBlanc, who pulls our chains to make things happen, which I'm grateful for that engagement. We need it. We need voice of the community. I was updated that we do have 2 applicant officers that are funded by STA, but both withdrew their application. So those are the school safety traffic officers. It's part-time. It's separate. They just deal with traffic at the school. We don't have those positions at this time. And unfortunately, it may not be consistent having our CSOs. We only have a few of them. They can only rotate so much. So although it was really great to see them, I don't want to mislead the public in thinking that they're always going to be there. But they do try their best. They have calls to answer their short staff. So want to thank at least that level of involvement and being there when they can. Want to shout out Sonny Ramos, who's been working with the city to bring in a senior program here with WK Foundation in Suisun City. So they are going to do a Youth Breathe program, monthly women's self-defense, and now a seniors boxing fitness class. Want to thank Councilmember Dawson for her help in that. She's a senior genius around here, and the other staff at the Recs Department and our city manager for really helping that come about. It looks like he will be announcing this at the senior fair, but wanted to shout out the work he's doing behind the scenes to really bring community together. It's important that we have a shared vision for what our city looks like, and we all use our strengths to make the city better. So really want to thank him for what he's doing. I really want to thank City Manager Brett Prebula. We had a great meeting with Salvation Army along with Chief Roth on how can we facilitate our shared interests here in Suisun City. I'm lucky to to be vice chair of that board at Salvation Army. They do a lot of community service work, a lot of outreach. So how do we use that to our advantage here in Suisun City? So really grateful for that meeting. And because they are a county organization, how do we start looking at that holistically with the rest of the county? So really excited for that. More to come. I did have the pleasure of attending the Toro Gala. Mayor Hernandez was there as well. It's always great. I work for Kaiser still full-time, and so it's good to see them give back to the community. One recipient won $10,000 for her scholarship, so grateful for Kaiser and the work they do with Toro. And also, flu season and COVID's on the rise. Please be safe. I handle the triage and the data, and it's getting on up there, so please stay safe. Mask up if you're able to. Ms. Dawson already commented, but the Rotary concert was amazing this weekend. I had the pleasure to help chair the silent auction committee, and we so far, not done yet, but we raised $10,000 just from that portion for our veterans. So really excited. The concert was great. Want to thank Councilmember Dawson as well as Chief Brad Lopez for their presence. It's always good to see Suisun City there. And I do have a special request tonight. This is my last thing, sorry, but it's important. We did lose a member of our Rotary family, Miss Candy Pierce. She did pass away unexpectedly. I really want to adjourn in her honor, if that's okay. She did a lot of work with CASA, a lot of youth engagement, really great person, and it really hurt me to hear that she passed. So I just want to close out in her memory and her honor. And that's all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I have a quick couple of updates. This past week, Councilmember Dawson and I attended the Capsolano JPA, that's our Homelessness Regional Board meeting. There was a point-in-time presentation about the number of individuals that were counted for homeless in the January count that happened. And so I've asked that that presentation be brought to members of council and to our community so you can also view all of that information. With that, I want to remind members of the public that we are going to be coordinating a homelessness roundtable, actually, for September 19th. So typically, we have hosted a homelessness forum. There would be a bit of a change of a format to be more of an action-oriented type of meeting, so we can start looking at what are the steps that we can collectively do to move forward on some of the items that we've all been kind of identified over the past year as various issues. So, and there will be an invitation out to a variety of service providers and industry experts in various spaces so that we can look at what we can do. I will ask members of council who wish to identify any areas that you would like to see focused on as well. That can be provided to myself and to our city manager as we start looking at setting up the agenda for that evening. So that will be taking place at 6 p.m., starting at 6 p.m. at the Joseph Nelson Community Center. So I just want to make sure we have that out there. The next thing that I want to quickly just note, just for the members of the council as well, to provide them an update as well, is yesterday we hosted a meeting here with the City of Suisun City staff and Sustainable Solano and a variety of environmental experts, including individuals from the San Francisco Estuary Institute, individual representing part of the work that's going on with BCDC, the Bay BCDC, regarding a specific law that we need to comply with on the adaptation of sea level rise for the City of Suisun City. And they are going to be providing an update to council, just a high-level overview of some of the information and work that has been taking place in the community engagement. So one of the things that Sustainable Solano has been successful at is receiving a grant for Suisun City. So they've been doing the work and doing outreach, and I see a lot of members here who have been at those meetings, so you know those workshops, and so that they're going to be providing some of that information back to council and providing a little bit about the input that community members have provided about things that they would like to see in the future. The meeting, however, was more technical yesterday. It's really about, great, there's some work that's taking place, there's some mandates that we have to, or some laws that we have to abide by. But what is Suisun City staff going to be able to do moving forward in regards to what does it mean for development? What does it mean as we look at our strategic plan? What does it mean when we need to engage at the city level and with our council members? More of that information. So more of that to come, and I just want to provide that update to our members of council as well. I also want to quickly mention that I was able to attend the opening of the Patuino Port Lacodoy Dihi open space. So that is a new open space park. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, it's off of Rockville Road, and was able to have the pleasure to meet some of the Yochadihi Winton Nation tribal leaders. You will probably see them, if you come to council regularly, on one of the boards that are up there. So there's 5 of the council tribal members that we feature here in our city hall, and so it was really wonderful to make that connection with them and let them know that we very definitely much honor the fact that we are on Patwin land here in Suisun City. A quick update. So I had mentioned in the past that Suisun City is starting to engage with students from Armio High School's Key Club. Just a quick update that they have started to work with our seniors. So they've gone out to meet with our seniors and heard a little bit about what they would like to see in the community and various engagement opportunities for them to volunteer within our community as well. And the other thing that I want to quickly mention is that Solano Express, for those who take the bus, Solano Express, this is a general meeting, comment out to the public, is hosting a stakeholder meeting August 29th, this Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. at the JFK Library, room 505 in the city of Vallejo. So this is for the community members to directly provide the input of what they want to see for Solano Express buses. This is the way that Suisun City residents can get travel throughout the Solano County, and then accessibility to BART as well. So those are some of the quick updates that I have. I'm grateful for the water rate sessions that have been happening. Was able to stop by and view. Thank you so much for all the engagement that residents have been doing. I really appreciate that. And I like to I think members of the community feel like I've been here for quite some time, probably because I've been a community leader for over 20 years and have been coming to city council for several years of that as well. I'm been very grateful of the time of service that I have. I have 1 year and a half officially as a city mayor. I'm grateful for the colleagues that I have because we're doing collectively really difficult work. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be of service in that way. So it's only been 3.5 years in of Suisun City as your civic leader, but it's been over 20 years of community leadership. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to continue to serve you in that way. And I'm always accessible and have a meeting hours here in Suisun City Hall every day what City Hall is open Monday through Thursday. So welcome to meet with anyone that would like to continue conversations. So with that, we're going to go ahead and continue on to the consent calendar. We have one item on consent. I'm looking to see if anybody wishes to pull this item. Not seeing any lights. I'm looking for a motion.
Motion approved. I'll second.
Okay, the motion has been made by Councilmember Dawson, seconded by Vice Mayor Washington. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, there's no abstentions or dissents, so it passes unanimously. Moving on to public hearing, we have none.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry.
Yes,
I do
go
have a
ahead.
public comment for number 4. I apologize.
Oh, okay. We'll go ahead and hear the public comment. It has been approved, so we'll accept the public comment for the record.
George, do you still want to speak on number 4? Grand jury report. Grand jury report, do you still want to speak on that? You kind of threw me. I really expected a presentation on that.
Could we hear a brief summary of the grand jury report on this?
We'll go ahead and provide just a high-level points, but the item has already been approved. We'll provide a few details.
Yeah, it's a little complicated because the council and the police chief were answering direct questions about it. I mean, I would recommend reading the responses. It's pretty cut and dry question answer. I think that's the best way to, articulate some of the subtleties. I'm having a hard time figuring out exactly how to summarize pieces of it because it goes in a couple different directions.
Just provide me with a copy of it?
So it should be in the agenda packet, the letter.
okay.
If not, I'm happy to have the clerk do that for you, George.
Yeah, the letter from the chief is, a copy of that is in the agenda packet, and primarily had to do with canines and canine programs. And so the grand jury identified various aspects of canine programs through departments in Solano County. The chief is simply responding to the fact that we don't have a canine program. If there is a canine program in the future, that there's some recommendations in there that make sense for Suisun.
We did have one in the past, by the way.
Yeah, not at this time. So that's really a summary of it.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, with that, we're going to go ahead and move on to general business. Item 5, council adoption of resolution declaring a local fiscal emergency in response to ongoing structural deficits and possible severe impact on public services. This is being presented by City Manager Prebula.
Okay. Of course I did something. This is why city managers don't touch anything. All right, go away. How do you hit exit? Okay, there we go. All right. Not touching anything else, I swear. So this evening we are going to talk about the fiscal emergency declaration, what that technically means, and then what does essentially not passing Measure S look like relative to city operations for the next year and then the years to come. It's important to note that the City Council in July, we had this discussion about a fiscal emergency. City Council asked that my office bring back this exact item to discuss further about A, possibly approving a resolution, but B, also to just inform the public about the severity of what's really going on here related to our fiscal situation. So what are our current financial challenges? I think we've talked a lot in the last 3 to 4 months specifically that Suisun is on an unsustainable path. We, for many years, have not developed at a pace and in a manner that would really allow us to have a strong property tax, sales tax, transient occupancy tax base to carry the cost of service operations for a 30,000 resident city. Right now, our service levels are far below what you would expect in a 30,000 resident city, and that is not because of the great work of the individuals that work for this community. It's because we don't have the number to fund truly the amount of staff that is required to do it at that level. As I look through the organization, it's very clear that we are operating in some areas significantly below what I would consider operations. We've talked about the issues with staffing in both police and fire, the impact that has to community response times, crime rates increasing. We have talked about the fact that public works staff is very much is very much underfunded in order to be able to deal with the parks and medians and general landscape that's required throughout this city. We've talked about our roads funding is really non-existent relative to SB1, which provides about $500,000 a year in roads funding when we need probably $5 to $7 million a year to get our pavement condition index at a level which it would not continue to significantly deteriorate. When we look at all of that, it also means that we are, in most of our service delivery departments, 1 or 2 positions away from really seizing up and being, frankly, dysfunctional in how we would operate. Again, not because of the men and women that are doing the work, but because we literally don't have the numbers to do it. I see that in especially our smaller service departments, like community development, where one person being off for a medical leave or a significant long vacancy could really put a halt to a lot of projects because we just don't have the person power behind it. Additionally, as we talked about when we approved the budget, we are looking at using 40% of our reserves this fiscal year to balance the budget. That means essentially we really don't have another shot at doing that again financially. So to put that into perspective, the general fund operating budget this year was $27 million. We used a variety of one-time funding to get it to essentially $25 million in revenue, some ongoing, some one-time, and then had to backfill with just over $2 million to balance the budget for this fiscal year. That means as we walk into the next fiscal year, we really should not be touching that reserve to try to balance our budget, or if we do, a fraction of what we used this year. And so without increased revenue, we essentially are at a point where we'd have to make significant reductions. I've had a lot of conversations with the community, and most of the conversation is why. Why is this? So I want to explain one reason why it is, and then I'll go into a little bit more detail. So what you see on the screen is a dollar bill, and that dollar bill represents property tax that we get in from a resident. Suisun City, out of the property tax you pay, the 1% assessment fee, Suisun City receives, when we blend both residential and commercial, 17 cents on the dollar.
Residential, it's actually less than that. It's under 14, but when we blend commercial, it gets up to 17 cents on the dollar. So people say, well, why is that? So when cities incorporate, originally, they agree to essentially revenue sharing agreements with the county land that they became incorporated with. And when you annex in property from the county as time moves on, you do very similar things. So you have these negotiations. 17 cents is not the worst. I was city manager of a city that had 6 cents on the dollar because they incorporated later. They can go as high as 27, 28 in some cities and even higher depending on the city. But what it means typically when you have a 17 to 20 cents on the dollar property tax rate, you're going to want to look to other industries to kind of bolster up. And so that would be creating entertainment zones, commercial zones throughout a city that would really sustain you as time moved forward. I think we attempted to do that, and we made some foundational progress over the last 15 years, but we did not continue that plan. And because of that, we kind of stagnated the sales tax side of our city revenue. And so this 17 cents on the dollar will not sustain us moving forward because the growth of that is very limited. It's actually capped by Proposition 13 to only be a 2% assessed value increase unless you were to sell your house. And so that means this number doesn't really grow. Property tax grows by about 3 to 3.5% in total revenue for the city. Expenses, just even taking employees out of it, our normal expense for contractors, for our insurances and all the things will go up far greater than that, not counting the need to continue to fund staff at the levels that we currently have. This will not sustain us. So what does that mean from a practical standpoint? It means if you owned a $500,000 house and your 1% assessment was $5,000 payment in property tax, Suisun City gets $850 of that. Where does the rest of the money go? School district, state, and I'm talking about the left side of your property tax bill, not your LLDs and other assessments. So why is this important? I don't think many people in the public understand that we don't get that whole 1%. I think when they pay $5,000 as a portion of their property tax, I think they think that's what we get in. And if I was a public member, I would think the same thing, because why would it be any different? But this is an important fact because it shows that we, as most cities, are not set up to let property tax ride the day. We have to have business license tax, TOT, sales tax, franchise fees. Some cities have utility user taxes, essentially to provide the city enough revenue to run the city, to run the level of service applicable to its resident level. So as we move forward, those financial challenges will continue because when I look at neighboring cities, cities of similar population, similar dynamics, they average about $1,800 per resident in revenue, just to do a per capita comparison. We're right below $900. We're literally half of what another city around us would be. And some of that has to do with property value, but that also has to do with how we develop to not help that. And so the reason why that statistic is important is because the same level of service expectation for 30,000 residents in two cities is expected, and we have half the revenue to do it. So how do we get out of that? And that's what we'll kind of be talking about. There's one of two ways to take it. It's either revenue or it's significant service delivery reductions. And I think it's important to talk about both because cities very much can have a lower level of service, but there are a lot of intended and unintended consequences that happen when you do that. And I think it's important that we discuss some of those today and go over kind of what that would mean for Suisun City. So we continue, we talk about current financial challenges, we talk about reserves, we talk about our infrastructure issues, we talk about our parks issues. I think, we could sit up here for hours talking about all of the issues. What I will tell you is the path that we're on after this fiscal year, if we did not have Measure S pass, means that we are going to see such a significant reduction in service, it'll dwarf the frustrations the community may have right now. And I say that with the caveat that I am not sensationalizing this. I am not trying to put fear into anyone's mind, but that this is the factual reality, that the dollars that come in do not match near the already lower service level that we can provide. And so the only other option is to increase the revenue side or drastically reduce the service side. So what does that mean? What it really means is Measure S isn't passed. Over the next 2 years, we'll see $7 million in service cuts. We will essentially have to get our expenses to about $20 million from $27 million. Okay, Brett, what does that mean practically? Like, explain it to us. I can tell you it means we most likely put a significant freeze on police officer hiring, if not hold vacancies vacant in order to save money, which means they may be authorized 26, as you know. They currently, I think, have 19 filled. We may be at that 19. We may have to go less. So what does that mean if I'm a community member in the city? It means your crime rates are going to go up significantly. It means your unhoused population is going to go up significantly. It means property crime is going to go up significantly. You know, it means the quality of life is going to be impacted. And it means you may actually have real property value issues. You know, I have heard that complaint in the community, and I can tell you property values here are definitely not going down. But if we were to have a pivot where we have, you know, far less police, far less fire, maybe only a handful of public works people administratively to do the legal requirements, parks that start to brown out or we decide to sell because we just no longer can maintain them, the community around us will essentially crumble. $20 million is nowhere near the level to run a 30,000 resident city, and just the basic general liability assurances, CalPERS pension costs would probably eat up half of that before I even started talking about staff. And so the severity of something like this is so great that I cannot stress enough that if I thought this was a spending problem, if I thought that we had significant leakage in the organization, you know, I'd be the first one to say we really need to make significant cuts because we could still deliver service in the same way. I would say that the employees have done such a good job at the current level that I would actually expect it to be far less relative to the staff that we have. And so even today's reality, I think, is a false sense of security on what Suisun is, because we are holding on by baling wire and duct tape. And we're doing it on the burnout and backs of 106 people. And the 60 or so temporary staff that work for us as well. And so when we pull the $7 million out, if we were to have to make that decision, it would be weeks and weeks of the executive team meeting. It would be multiple meetings with this council, because the direction we would have to go is really decide what can we hold on to and what are we literally getting rid of. And when you make cuts at this level, to bring it back, say revenue starts to come in or we pass the measure 2 years later or something happens where revenue increases, it's very difficult to the community of people that work in this industry for them to want to just jump right back into an organization that had such a downfall. And so it's going to be years and years for we would even be close to the level we're at today if we had to make $7 million in cuts. I wish there was another way, but the real only other way is that we need the bridge of additional revenue to be able to buy the time for our economic development plan, for other revenue discussions to happen, so we could have the time that we've talked about within our resiliency plan to really allow the community to see us put the good work to action, see these plans start to come to fruition. And I think there is as equal and much an opportunity for us to see sitting 6 to 8 years from now at $35 million to $37 million in general fund revenue as there is nothing passing and we end up at $20 million. I think we are at that crossroads as a city. I came here knowing that. I came here, and I've said this to council and the community, because I believe in what the council's doing. I believe in the staff that's here, and I think we can reach the correct goal of 35 to 37 million in that time frame. But we need the trust and support of the community. And this is a time when, from your city manager, I would say the community needs to help us be able to help everybody else. We cannot get there without the community's support. I wish there was additional revenue and another easy way to get, but there is not in California. The simplest way is to go to the voters. And I think right now, if we had another option, we would. But we're not, because we need that bridge money to be able to do our game plan. So what does a fiscal emergency do? So what's the true, what does declaring a fiscal emergency do? Well, the first thing is, if you declare a fiscal emergency and it's unanimous, I have the ability then to call a special election next year to essentially put this ballot measure back on the ballot if it doesn't pass in November. That's probably the biggest benefit of a fiscal emergency right now to us, is that it gives us the authority then to put a special election on the ballot if we are not successful in November. The second thing it does is it opens up our MOUs with our union represented employees. They're commonly referred to as a zipper clause. They open them up and we can have discussions to try to do regressive bargaining. I have been through regressive bargaining during COVID. I can tell you it is a very, very difficult and emotional situation to go with employees. There is no winner when you regressive bargain. Whether the city gets money back or the union groups hold firm, however it happens, no one wins in that situation, and it typically is, from a culture standpoint of an organization, not the best thing to go through and try to then kind of lift up your employees to continue to move forward. But that would be another option that happens. What doesn't happen is, unfortunately, it doesn't trigger an immediate state or federal bailout. So there is no one coming to similar to what happened with COVID, where the federal government came in. We don't have that ability. It's really meant in fiscal emergencies, and many of our contracts, not just in our union ones, they allow us the ability essentially to negotiate down a lot of our cost structure, but not all of it, and it's not a guarantee. But the primary focus is that it alerts the community and frankly gives us the ability to go in a special election to try again. But to do that, again, we need a unanimous vote, or it does not hold the weight that we otherwise would need. With that, and I will end the presentation this evening, so hear comments and answer any questions from the council. My recommendation right now is that we talk about this, we explain the severity, we answer any questions from the public and yourselves, and we essentially say we're ready to go, but we hold off until we know if the measure passes. And as a city manager, I'm saying that because I do have concerns about the current staff that we have. I think they know the issue. I have sent a staff-wide video so they're aware of the issue tonight, but I don't want to create panic. This is severe. We are in one of those situations where the outcome at the failed vote in November is about as awful as the city can get. So I don't want to sugarcoat it, but I also don't want to get employees or potential employees to feel like we're not a destination. Because like I said earlier, I came here because I thought we could make this happen, and I still believe that sitting up here today. And as the operating leader of the organization, it's important for me to hold that, but I understand that if we need to make a decision because we feel like now is the time, your city manager is well ready to pivot on whatever direction your council chooses. And so with that, I will open it up for any questions or comments from the council.
Thank you so much, City Manager Prebula. I think the most important thing right now that we can do for our community is to have very clear and transparent conversations about the severity of this issue, have questions answered, and also continue to help members of the community understand what this entails, what this would mean, and what Measure S really means for our city as well. So thank you. I'm going to bring it to members of council, starting with Councilmember Dawson, to see if there's any questions, comments. At this time, this is an open conversation.
Questions or comments? So I don't necessarily have any questions. I think it's been pretty clear how over the last year and a half, 2 years almost, that we have been here, where we were and where we're going. Frankly, this should have been taken care of in 2020. I personally think anything that needs to go to a vote of the community should always have, the community should always have that opportunity to have a democratic process and being able to determine where we're going to go. So we all, I mean, the last 2 years, we knew exactly the direction that we were going. I'm here, I'm calling it for what it is. I'm ready to move forward. I'm in full support of calling the financial emergency today if we can go into November. I understand the caveats of the staffing challenges and things like that. But I also know that we call it for what it is now. My hope is that our community will show up for us when it comes to November, and we're not sitting here in crisis doing this all over again next year and just putting us farther down. So those are just some of my comments, but definitely open to having more in-depth conversation as we go through this.
Thank you. Councilmember Powell?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, just for the record, my apologies for being late. It was back to school for my 2 kiddos, and I missed it last year. So just putting family ahead. Madam Mayor, I'm still kind of digesting this. I'll have some more comments as we go. Thank you.
No worries. And as we continue this conversation, if I can have City Manager, oh, there we go. Well, actually, I was about to ask to stop sharing of the screen. Thank you. Councilmember Osen.
Yes, Mr. City Manager, when will the current Measure S sunset?
So the current Measure S sunsets June of 2026, and so we really have 25 mostly, maybe a fleeting chance to try again in 26. I will let the council and the public know, really depends on the type of election, but a special election could cost us as much as $100,000 each time we go to do it. So it is not without its own financial risk, although obviously the detriment of not having the measure is greater. Measure S on its own, so just some clarification, the current Measure S is about $4 million a year. The increased Measure S is 2.8 to 3 million, thus the $7 million essentially we have today in our budget that would no longer be there if this didn't pass and we continue to not get it passed till expiration.
Okay. When the Measure S on the ballot in November passes, when will it kick into the budget?
So if Measure S passes in November, essentially the second quarter of the calendar year of 25, we start to receive it, so April, May, and June. We anticipate we would receive about $700,000 in revenue during that time, so essentially it takes your $2 million reserve use down to $1.3 million in theory, which is great, and then we would receive the ongoing annual total of roughly, $3 million plus the current $4 million for the next 15 years, assuming that measure passed.
With the current reserves that we have, if Measure S passes this November, will it be enough to tide us through this current situation that we're looking at in terms of the...
So it is thin. I will refer to it as being thinly balanced. What my office will do is work with department heads to figure out, essentially, year to year, how can we stay within budget until the other parts of our plan start to be realized. And what I mean by that is we start to see vertical development and some key initial phases of our development plan. We'll probably bring back in the spring, if it passes, a conversation with council about some other areas that we need to shore up that will help the general fund, most notably the LLDs, because there's a lot of leakage there relative to their lack of funding. And we'll kind of continue to push forward this multi-year game plan of both local revenue and a significant development to try to get us to that $35, $36 million number, by 2028 or slightly beyond.
So technically, if the Measure S passes, we'll be in a state where we don't have to worry about the budget, but more importantly, we will be in a position to implement revenue generation plans. No?
It would give us the time. I would say we're not clear enough where I feel like we would have such clarity, because we'll be able to add certain things in certain areas, but definitely not do the sweeping service increase that we would need. That really is a level closer to, $31 to $32 million a year, where I feel like our public safety staff and our key public works staff in the field and other things would be at staffing levels that would allow this community to see increased traffic support, increased unhoused flight issues, fixing roads, continuing to enhance our parks. I mean, all of that is a little bit higher revenue, but the Measure S is literally the lifeline and the bridge that would allow us the time to do it. I think our comprehensive game plan that council is continuing to look at and evolve. This is the way to do it because it doesn't put it only on the backs of local residents. It's a blend of development, local residents, looking for other opportunities regionally to be more effective. I think all of that is a great way. The problem is we don't have enough runway to get there without Measure S. So if it doesn't pass, we essentially run out of time. And that's why we would have to make such drastic cuts initially if Measure S fails, because I would not recommend you taking your reserves to zero. And the only way to continue at this service level without Measure S would be to do that for one more year. And to me, that is not a fiscally prudent thing to do. And so we would start cutting, probably have those initial strategy sessions in early 25 if Measure S didn't pass.
Thank you so much.
Vice Mayor Washington?
So I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. I think it's important that the public is aware of the severity of the situation that we have been put in. I had the privilege of speaking with a long-term financial employee from Suisun City who mentioned the financial trouble that we had back then and the failure to do anything about it. I think we inherited a mess that I was not even aware of until I got in this seat. And so I want to say that this is no fault of the ones before you, but we have inherited this mess, and it really is indicative of a larger issue. We look around us, the state's in a deficit, the country's in a deficit. I operate my household at a deficit. Quite frankly, I work 2 jobs, and I still feel like I don't have enough money. This is the law of the land, the lay of the land that we're kind of in. So I think we're a victim of inflation, economic downturn, all these other factors that weigh in. And small cities pay the price more than larger cities because we don't have the reserve. We look next door at our neighbors. Fairfield is a great example of a huge city potential to develop, but they have a deficit that they have to address. And we are in a worse situation because we're small. I know I pushed to have this agenda item here. I understand that there's concerns for staffing and alerting them and them not feeling safe. I think having this conversation is the best thing we can do to protect not just our staff, but the public at large. There is no one on a white horse coming to save us. It just doesn't exist. There is no federal funding, no state funding. Grants are very specific. We don't have the reserves. And it's really unfortunate because even myself has become a punching bag for the situation that we're in. I was told, well, you know, you get paid X amount of money. Well, the reality is I took a pay cut to be here in this position because I love this city and I grew up here. We all are sworn to protect this city, and that's what we're doing right now. I think it's important that we really frame and be honest and not have the dog and pony show about how great our city is. The reality is we're failing financially. There's this great quote by Jay-Z, who I love, my favorite rapper. He says, "Men lie, women lie, numbers don't." I looked at these numbers. We dipped 40% into our reserves. It's not a joke. Even if we pass Measure S, with this increase, it's not sustainable. That's the reality. But it will give us some breathing room. We look at, potential for development. We are optimistic of that, but that takes time and money. Construction costs are astronomical. The rate of borrowing is astronomical. It takes a lot of money to develop. So even looking at our potential to develop, we have to keep in mind it's not going to happen overnight. I have pounded the pavement trying to bring things to Suisun City to no avail because of that. You can have a great idea. I feel like council humbles you. You have this great idea. Well, if we bring in more revenue, we can fix it. Yeah, well, when? Because you can have the investor there, but if the rate of return is not worth it, are they going to build? I think the best thing that we can do as a city is prove to others that we are worth investing in by doing it ourselves. I cannot say that enough. If we don't invest in ourselves, who is going to invest in us? There's this false narrative that we can be absorbed by Fairfield. They don't want our debt. Not possible. We really need to stop looking and pointing fingers and really face the reality of where we are. We have no money. We have 1 year left, if possible. If we don't pass this tax measure, we're going to have to pull this trigger either way. My concern with doing that then is we do have 2 people up for re-election. no offense to the candidates, but what if one thinks the same way I did, that we can come and save this? We can't. So I'm very concerned with waiting for that reason. I don't like hanging my hat on variables. I don't like the unknown. I don't know if this tax measure is going to pass. Quite frankly, I don't have the faith in the public to answer this call. I love you guys, but I don't. I hear way too much pushback for something that we all need. This is not for me. Look, like I said, I took a pay cut being here. Amit doesn't even take money being here. This is not about money. There is no way to cut. There's nothing else we can do. I'm really frustrated that we have to keep having this conversation with people. This is not a joke. Do you want Suisun City to exist or not? Do you want your calls answered? That tree that I saw last night would have sat there in the dark and someone would have got killed if we did not have our officers and our public works there picking up that tree. That's how serious this is. My daughter would not have a CSO officer at her school. Children are walking across the street. Do you want to keep us safe or not? This is not a council decision. These 5 votes do not matter for this. And I say that with all sincerity. I took an oath because I love this city to protect it. And if that means going against the people who I am serving, I may have to do that and really shake your head about how serious this is. It's not a joke. If you take nothing else from today, look at these slides. It's there in picture format. Look at the numbers. It's all there. I don't know what else we need to do to wake people up. We have to spend our own time to campaign for a tax measure that benefits the rest of you. That's how much we care. There are things that we do that you guys don't even know and see. You just see us here every Tuesday and think that's it. It's not a joke what we do up here, and it's very heavy for us. I want to live in this city. I want to die here in this city, basically. That's how serious this is. We have maybe a year left, if that. And I'm very concerned. It's very troubling. I had really great talk with city manager about what is that niche? Do we act like it's all good and keep it all dog and pony, or do we tell the God honest truth and we scare you? But we have to have that middle ground. We have to have hope and faith in ourselves. I cannot give that to you. We can vote all we want today, but unless you people turn up to vote to save our city, it will not happen. I don't know what else we can do. I mean, we call a fiscal emergency and everyone's scared to death. If we stop having services, the city crumbles and you tell us it's too late, right? Well, you should have warned us. Well, we're warning you now. All the complaints we get, people complaining about trash, this, that, and that. This is why we don't have the staff. This is not a regular business. This is a livelihood. These are people working to increase our quality of life. If we don't back them and back ourselves, we will be screwed.
Thank you. There was something in the staff report that talked about the Council of 2020. None of us were here on this dais in 2020, but many of us were in those seats right there asking the council at that time to pass the opportunity to put that tax measure on the ballot so voters could vote. Let us vote for the opportunity, as my colleague says, to save ourselves. Let us be the ones to determine our fate. These council chambers and all of that rotunda and actually overflowing outside of City Hall were filled with individuals, plus everyone calling online to say, please put this on the ballot. We absolutely need it. Today we find ourselves in this situation because the individuals at the time, or at least 2 of the dissenting votes at that time, didn't move forward with that opportunity. This is why I'm so proud of my colleagues today. We all say it. We own this problem. It's ours. Why? We grew up here in Suisun City. We're talking about our streets, our schools, our neighbors, and how much it matters to look at you in the eye, to go out into the community and speak to individuals, to answer the questions. We all get yelled at, all of us. There's not one of us does not walk around the street and doesn't get pulled over either in the grocery store, the parking lot of somewhere, and not get yelled at by someone who's frustrated. And we understand that frustration 100%. We live it too. Someone was talking about our potholes. I was just sharing, yeah, I felt it too, and I had to get a new axle on my car. 100% I feel the same pains as everybody else in what it means to be faced with the current infrastructure issues of our community. Yet we have the opportunity to make a difference in being able to bring this to the voters and for voters to understand what this really means to us and what it means to our services. So we've been already paying 1% of tax. That stays the same. Now we're asking for a 0.75% increase on the tax. That's actually cents on the dollar, about a Starbucks coffee more, okay? That's really our ask. And I think it's really important for everyone listening and everyone who's here to help us share that message, because people might see a 1.75% increase. What does that mean? Well, that's what it means. It's actually cents on the dollar of the increased ask that we're making. But what it will do is ensure that Suisun City has a pathway forward. We're also being very clear that we are not relying only on this tax measure to continue services and operations. Over, under, and around is our due diligence to ensure that we're bringing development. We're looking for opportunities to streamline, opportunities to facilitate the way that employees do their jobs so that they can do it better. The cost of services, negotiating better. I've read a contract that was 30 years old in Suisun City, and each time, and I keep it in my office, because each time I read it, I'm very frustrated that 30 years ago, someone placed us in positions that were not to the benefit of our residents or our city, and we're stuck in contracts that don't benefit us. So to be able to today to actually facilitate consultants to negotiate on our behalf with our garbage services and rates, right? Those are all important things to make sure that we're finding other ways to bring revenue into the city. Now, what is this fiscal emergency? I remember being here and watching the last fiscal emergency play out and what it did to the community at the time. And it wasn't a good thing at the time because of the number of individuals that work for the city who were saying, you know what, well then we're out. And we are already very vulnerable and fragile with the current staffing that we currently have. We are actually trying to fill positions. So it's kind of confusing even for members of the public. Wait, you're trying to hire people, but you're also declaring a fiscal emergency? What does this mean? Right? So it's important to be very clear about the message of where we are. Yes, we're hiring. Please come and work for us. We believe in our community, and we're confident that we're going to get this passed because we believe that we're able to share our story and help people understand why this is so important. At the same time, it's really important to ensure that we can remain sustainable in providing the services that we can while this measure is passed. So that's really where we are in regards to some of those pieces and some of the concerns that I have, and I'm naming them right now about what it would mean to our current structure if declaring at this time. And then let's say we declare the emergency and don't pass in November, then we've already used the one lever that we had to really let people know how big of a deal this really is. What we're trying to do is educate the community now. This is such a big deal that we're already ready to put that fiscal emergency in place. Currently, based on the presentation, it says it has a specific date. This is why it's important. Bring back the resolution November 12, 2024 if tax measure fails. Why is that date important? It's important because this current council who is here seated will be the seated council on November 12th to make that decision. So it's still all of us. And so that's why it's important to make sure that it's noted, and if this recommendation were to proceed, that it is declared that that's the date that the decision will need to take place. I know we've been taking some airtime. I want to hear from members of the public, but before I go to members of the public, Councilmember Powell.
Thank you, Mayor and Brett. I know we've had conversations about this. Generally speaking, I'm not the one for tax measures, being in business, having worked for companies. But then something sort of happened. I was looking at this journey in the back was the day I was appointed last year, the second day I was dropping my son off to the school, and luckily my daughter was not in the vehicle with me. And The next thing I know, I see a public works person. I didn't even see this. So I was driving and a rock hit my window and broke my minivan's window out. And, luckily my daughter wasn't in there. I got there and I looked at it and I looked, the person didn't have the appropriate tools that they needed to be weed whacking our lawns, right? So that's what I've observed is they needed the appropriate tools. For whatever reason, right? That's what, as a council, because people ask me, what have you guys been doing? Collaboratively, each and every one of us, we work to make sure that they had the basic tools and necessary items that they needed to do their jobs. That's what's been happening. So that's why if you see the money being spent, that's where it's being spent. We got a new vac truck, right? And we've got other other machinery that came out to help our staff. If they don't have the tools to be successful, then they can't do their job. So we're going to have to spend money. It's almost like one of my mentors in business says, and I tell my group, well, you got to spend money to make money. So we did all of that, and then I looked at it, we have Brett now. Maybe there's some things we could do better. We all could. We're learning from that. But just last council meeting, we contract with City of Fairfield for the battalion chief position. So it's not as if we're just doing the same thing and expecting different results. As a council, and I think in my one-on-ones and others, we encourage to pivot. And sometimes it may not work. Sometimes it may work. This tax measure, as I look at it, it's not something I want. But then I look at it as a community, we need it. We go to other communities and say, look, how nice Walnut Creek is. We say, why can't we do this? Have you looked at their property tax? Have you looked at their tax rate? Yet we can go spend that. And our city, keep in mind, is a very small city. And I think today, I was talking to Steve, and I said, Steve, the challenge is Suisun so small, we can't spread the tax rate out. I mean, even on the water rate. So other cities have a larger population. They can spread that out. We can't. We have a very small population. And I feel like if we don't do this right now, then as a resident who's, like many of us, have been here since 7 or born here, I can't do justice to the city or the staff. And I know some people might be upset. Fine, we can cut. But what I realize is this is like a Titanic. We approved the 2 CSO officers sometimes in January. It took us time to put the job description out there, hire the right candidates, train the right candidates to what the post was in June and July. 43, Brett,
Yeah, so since July, we have towed over 30 vehicles and then cited an additional 43 in less than 60 days.
So, my thing is, okay, if you guys want things to be cut, they can cut, but just get back to the same level we are. It will take, 4 years, 3 years?
It's hard to say. Typically, it's a lot. I mean, it could get close to a decade because culturally what happens in this industry is once people feel like you have made that big shift, and you saw this happen in Vallejo and a few other cities, quality staff become very reluctant to go in places that they think are basically either never going to grow after they're cut or simply continuing on their way down. And so I think many, many years is maybe the generic answer, but I have seen it take, even a decade to truly get back where you
Just to get to the level we are right now. So think about that for a second. The level we are right now, where we get so many complaints, residents are happy, businesses are happy. Put that in perspective. It will put us back another 10. Let's say it's like 5 years, 10 years. That's how much further back we'll go. So that's just my commentary on this, and I think this is why it's needed. So, Brett, I do want to go back and mention when we get to the fiscal emergency is one thing I always said during last year's negotiation was, hey, look, as we negotiate in good faith, if there are cuts, it just won't be our line people. It just won't be people at the front staff. Does this also open up negotiations with, say, other unions, mid-level management? Like, how would that go?
Yeah, it opens the door to everything, essentially. And so it means we have to strategically look at how we sit down and start to have the conversations around from your city manager, frankly, right, all the way down. So it doesn't even preclude my contract from council saying, hey, we'd like to talk about a potential renegotiation, right? So it is everybody. What I think we try to do initially as to not impact staff is we look at the current vacancies and we see, does a freeze solve some of the problem initially? Maybe yes, maybe no. Operationally, that can be unattainable in certain areas, specifically public safety. It may actually not be safe to do that, but we look at it across the board. If that doesn't work, then we go into a conversation about regressive bargaining. And again, you know, that is difficult. And since I have the mic, one more thing to add. Our economic development plan works because we'll have time. If we cut $7 million, crime goes up, parks look terrible, roads get worse, that goes away. Like, no developer is going to go, that's where I want to buy, and hope that 10 years from now, they're at a place where they could actually give me an ROI. And so when I say it really stops us, I mean, it really halts us, because to your point, Councilmember Paul, in larger cities, you may have subsets of a city that may have that problem, but not the city as a whole, right? So if you look at Walnut Creek, there are small subsets that aren't as great as the biggest whole, but that easily is absorbed because of what happens to the rest of the city. We haven't gotten there yet, and so it would basically put our economic development plan at a complete halt, and we would just be holding on for dear life at that point.
Thank you. And I just want to clarify for the record, because I know in the past, you know, as the contracts were approved, the staff came up to, I would say many of us or all of us, and said, hey, we thank the council for what you guys have done, but we're concerned where the money's going to come, right? And I think collectively, not just the council here, but the residents, will find a solution. And that solution is this measure. And the thing is, we're my English is second language, so fiduciary, is that the right word I want to say?
Yeah, our fiduciary responsibility. Yep.
Thank you. Is to ensure we don't waste the taxpayers' dollars. And I think for many of us up here, or all of us, that is the goal. And if not, we have the people in the audience to ensure that doesn't happen. And I think, same thing I hear. The mayor makes $100,000. You councilor makes $60,000. And I said, wait, what? No, that's not realistic. And those are the false narrative. And I'm to the point where I even said to somebody, I was like, you know what? I get it. We want to be more involved on social media, but it drains us. It literally does. It's like, now I choose, okay, well, if you have a question with the city, I'll address it. But if it's like, well, you guys make $70,000, or what's been said to many of us here, that's not the key. We don't do this for the money, and I think you guys in the audience know. And here we are, we're saying we need more public participation. Let's do this, let's do that. I mean, I know it's not on the agenda, but on the water board, we've asked for so many meetings, and there's the same, no offense, like the 5 people that show up. So that's what I'm saying is we're all getting, I want more people to be involved, but clearly, whatever schedule you want, we're here, but just, work with us. We're not against you guys. We're all in this together. We live in your city. We're neighbors. Our kids go to school together. So that's all I have to add.
Vice Mayor Washington.
So this might sound like a dumb question, but I think it's important for the public to hear. I mean, there's talks about, well, can't the city, basically I was told, well, can't the city fundraise and have a bake sale and make some money? No, I'm serious. Someone really said that to me. I think it's important the public is aware of the limited ways that we can make money as a city.
That's actually a really great question, because I think it's more complex than most people think. So cities can obviously charge sales taxes, right? We get on goods sold. And I will tell you the benefit of what's called a transaction use tax, which is what Measure S is. That type of sales tax comes directly back to the community. So when you buy something online at Amazon, or you buy a car in another city, called Bradley Burns, but the normal sales tax, it goes into a big pool countywide, and then essentially your percentage of that pool is what you get out. And we are slightly higher than Rio Vista and about equal with Benicia. So think about that. There's really not a direct benefit to Suisun. Yes, it's money still, but it doesn't come nexus straight back. Measure S comes to...
I just want to point out, that portion of that tax, most of it goes to the state.
Correct.
And then a little bit goes back to the city.
Correct.
And the county and the county. Yeah, most of that's for the state.
That is a great point by City Attorney. I think that's, so why do we have these local measures in different cities like Measure S? It's because we have to find a way to fund ourselves. So to the Vice Mayor's question, we use these transaction use taxes because the money comes directly back. So now when you go buy a car, the 1% piece that is Measure S related right now comes directly back to Suisun. So to give you an example, our normal sales tax dollars are X. Typically, when you have a local measure, it's about 110% more for your local measure. So if you got $4 million in general sales tax, you get $4.4 million in your local measure. We are 145% more. Why is that? Because most of our spending is leakage outside of our community, because we have yet to develop in the way we need to. And so I say that because, to your point, Vice Mayor, this measure allows us to capture the leakage, buy us the time to develop, so we can keep that dollar even more insulated in Suisun as time moves on. So besides sales taxes, we have property taxes. You saw the lovely dollar bill and the sliver of pie that we actually get there. Again, property tax is needed because residents are needed, because more residents means cheaper water rates, because you're spreading it out, as Councilmember Paul mentioned. So that's another area. We can increase through parcel taxes. We can add a different layer of property tax potentially. But again, those types of taxes have their benefit, but their downside is that only residents pay for that, not people coming in. The next tax we can do is a transit occupancy tax. And so essentially people that come into hotels, we are allowed to tax that. There's an opportunity with future discussions with council if that rate were to go higher, but you typically don't want to have that rate go higher until your occupancy rates of your hotels are higher. And our occupancy rates are not what we would want them to be to put that on the purveyor at this time. The other things you can do are business license taxes, which we do, and you can see if that needs to be increased. We charge fees for service, so things that are directly related like Parks and Rec or development fees. And then you get in the weeds when you start talking about taxes like utility user taxes or franchise fees taxes. That's a very fancy way of saying we tax you for using cable, city phone, Netflix, whatever UUTs are out there. You can essentially have it added to your bill. They can be very productive because, again, the entire user base, the ones that use it are the ones that taxing, thus the name. In some cities, that the revenue of equal-sized cities to us can be anywhere between $3 and $5 million a year between cable and gas and all of the ways. So these are areas that we will eventually in the spring look with council, assuming Measure S passes, just so the public and council knows the menu. But those are very specific. They are very linear. They require different varieties of public votes. And frankly, they are they're not easy to put in place, and the flexibility around adding taxes around that, besides that, is rather small. And so, yes, it is a difficult thing to raise revenue, and most of the time, somebody in the community is going to get impacted by the revenue being raised. And that is just unfortunate. That's the California structure. And to get a little bit deeper, just in case anyone wants to look at it, in the 70s when we passed Prop 13, which essentially says when you buy your house, the value of that home stays the same and can only grow at a max of 2% in assessed value per year, it capped our ability as a state, and thus local cities, to actually have the revenue sufficient. So we created all of these other things that I just told you about in a way to try to capture the rest of the money that otherwise wouldn't happen. So we created this very complex, rigid system that makes it very difficult for local municipalities to actually raise enough money to operate. And thus, to your earlier comment, Vice Mayor, you're seeing it start to deteriorate all around us at lesser degrees, but all of the cities that are larger, bigger, more industrious right now are still having deficit problems. So frankly, how could Suisun not in that situation?
So the answer to the question is our only recourse is taxation as a city for revenue. So please be aware we don't have any other recourse. I think that's important to note. Also, back to what we're actually here for is the fiscal emergency question. The way that it's written by staff recommendation is we could potentially vote today to have this, and it's not implemented until or if Measure S passes. Is that a portion of, is that right to say, or is that not correct?
That's a good question. I'll look to the city attorney. I mean, I don't know if you can declare it today and essentially hold it over until it passes. City attorney, is there a way they could motion in that way where essentially it's passed today but not enacted unless the measure fails? Or would we have to come back?
Well, we could make it in a way so it's not effective until 60 days or whatever the case may be. 75 days, how many days we need. But yeah, we'd have to do it something like that, where we change the effective date.
A clarifying question. So I would imagine if we motion for that, we could also rescind the motion at a future meeting if it's not needed.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And actually, I have a question about the resolution, because the resolution, it's titled, it's a declaration of a local fiscal emergency in response. But in section 5, where we're actually saying what we're doing, we're saying we're going to investigate and recommend further action necessary to alleviate the impacts of the conditions supporting the finding. So the way the resolution's worded, the actual text of it, we're not actually declaring a fiscal emergency. We're looking at investigating and deciding how we, and I don't know if that's
not the intention. No, the intention of that clause was to essentially say, with the fiscal emergency, we'll look through a variety of options to try to mitigate the results, to try to balance along the way, knowing that we're declaring a fiscal emergency.
Well, then we need to have a section that says we're declaring a fiscal emergency under the findings. So.
I think we can just amend that in the records of the attorney, right? I'm assuming that would be fine.
Thank you for investigating. And I'm glad there seems to be some sort of loophole. Again, my concerns are we don't declare this fiscal emergency now. We wait, and if we have 2 new council members, and it needs to be unanimous, quite frankly, for this to pass. If we don't show solidarity in this with us, I think that's not going to land well. And I have some comfort knowing, point blank, nothing needs to happen. We can declare it now. It can go into effect if it needs to on that date. I think that's a happy medium from what I'm hearing. There's concerns about the optics to the staff, reopening all these clauses. But if we pass the tax measure, we don't need to continue with this fiscal emergency. However, buying ourselves time with this current council, heaven forbid any of you leave, we don't, again, variables, I hate them. I'm looking at a way where we can act now as a body to prevent any future recourse that could be detrimental to us and be ready if needed, but then rescind it if the tax measure passes. So I look to see if that's a possibility.
Yes, and how would that look like, and what would need to be changed here in order for that to be?
Well, I'd change a couple things. First of all, I put an additional section, probably after section 5, saying the city council unanimously declares a fiscal emergency, so that it's clear that that's the purpose of this resolution. And then we could add a section, we could add a section that just makes the effective date is whatever date you want to put in there. And then if the measure does pass in November, we could rescind that before it becomes effective.
Clarifying question, but that language cannot be put into the resolution.
What language?
The language that we would rescind the,
No.
But we can have an action item that would revolve around that happening.
Yep. Well, we could even do it on consent calendar.
I just want to say this council brought in a new city manager and a new city attorney, and I'm grateful for both of them. And that is the most important thing we can do as a council, or we only can hire and fire 2 positions in this city. Mm-hmm. And I'm grateful for the change that has been made. So thank you for that loophole. I know we have to discuss it, but I think it's a happy medium as far as I'm concerned. So thank you.
Any questions, Councilmember Dawson?
Yes, Ms.
I
Mayor.
apologize. Councilmember Osa,
Yeah.
followed by
Thank you,
Councilmember Dawson.
Dawson. Now, almost from the very beginning to this date, I'm still having a problem answering one basic question that I've gotten from a lot of residents that I spoke to. And the question goes like this: what is the vision, what is the unifying vision for Suisun City, and what is the economic development master plan? Now, the reason why I believe people are asking this is, one,
they're still optimistic that something could be done.
that, despite that even a consensus to declare a fiscal emergency now, things could still change. But the only way they feel that they would have the confidence to say that we could still get out the hole we're in is if they understand what we're willing to do in order to ensure that when Measure S passes, or even if it doesn't pass, there is a pathway we're going to take which will leverage the resources we have, take advantage of it to make Suisun City an eco-tourist destination. We still have the Suisun Marsh, we still have the waterfront, we've got historic buildings, we've got historic homes, we still have businesses. What they're asking perhaps is the direction we're going to take in order for us to get out of this hole. Now, it would require the intelligence, the experience of people who may not even come from Suisun City, but experts that we could probably ask for us to be able to come up with that plan. No? We talk about an economic plan or economic development plan, but what is in that plan? The details are what residents and I myself is asking, because it gives us a definitive direction on how we could get out of this hole. Like, what can we do, for instance, is there a portion of the plan which would entail that we try and generate savings from expenses? Is there a portion in that plan which would state that we maximize or live within the means that we have? All those, unless it's clear to me and the residents, no, I don't think they'll have the confidence to say, okay, we're going somewhere. But at the moment, I couldn't see that direction. I don't see specifics on how it will be done, no? How this economic development plan, first, what is it, what's contained on it, what's the timeline, and how much do you think we would generate from the economic development plan? No? If it will take 10 years, so what's the next 3 years going to be? What activities are involved there? And from there, we move probably in phases. Phase 1, we, shall we say, stabilize the financial situation through Measure S. What will be phase 2? How are we going to use the funds extra from the Measure S to start economic improvement? Because at the moment, what people are seeing is we're getting all the necessary manpower that we need in order to improve the quality of service to the citizens. But the quality of service doesn't show how economic development would proceed using the resources that we have. So hopefully, and when I was asked why the Measure S, is it the only component of us being able to survive? I said no. It's a combination of both. Getting us into a financial situation where we don't have to worry about what we need, but having another portion of the plan which will explain how we would generate revenues sustainably to a point that we will be able to improve and develop within the next years, no? So unless I believe that is explained, hopefully even before the ballot, even if it's not fully, well, the explanation isn't complete, no? I think that will boost the confidence of everyone to vote for Measure S. And, yeah.
Would you like me to add some things to that? Okay. So a couple of things. I have only been here with the team for 5 months, and I'm moving as fast as humanly possible, council member, so I can tell you that. Looking back, Suisun City has had a problem not following a specific plan that they've chosen, whether it's strategic, economic, or otherwise, and pivoting very quickly because we have needed money, and we made decisions reactive in that way, which has caused us to not really be in a good situation here. So just to remind the public, we have outsourced business licenses, which is a net positive. We have changed investment advisors that added, we believe, easily a couple $100,000 to our interest earnings for this fiscal year. We have continued to look at, as Councilmember Paul and others have mentioned, CSOs that we have now to actively deal with the illegal parking issues, which is part of the blight. We have enacted, just this next 2 weeks coming up, we're going to enact our illegal dumping team, which is going to be dedicated staff to walk around and deal with all of the other blight issues. We have hired a strategic planning consultant to narrow that focus and put an implementation and plan in related to strategic planning, so your big picture and accountability metrics to that. We've hired one of the greatest economic development firms in the state in Cosmont to do and work with the community and the council and my office on developing that exact economic development strategy and implementation plan with phasing, with costing. I'm bringing this all up because we're hiring a lobbyist for the first time maybe ever in the city's history. Next council meeting, we are putting in all these foundational pieces that, to be very frank, should have been here a long time ago. But to all your council members' points, this body has only been sitting together for a short while. Your city manager has only been here for a short while. And we have made those collective changes in 5 months. That is a lot of effort. The problem is these things take time. So starting in early September, our economic development consultant will be meeting with stakeholders and the council to start to go over what some of that back information looks like, what that plan would be to develop. We need to have community meetings around that. We need to do a lot, and it's going to take us up and through the election. What I can foreshadow is we are focusing on phasing development, starting with parcels near this city hall, phasing into the waterfront, phasing up and through to our 34-acre property in a manner that will maximize the development of the city. So I do not get to make those decisions. It's a collective decision of your council through the process. But have a community envision a downtown zone where the waterfront is, the current theater, Lawler, just that area. Imagine it as an entertainment zone where we could have parking somewhere else. You walk down to this entertainment zone where you're eating at restaurants, you're going to bars, you have exciting activities that can happen down there day to day. Imagine a 34-acre lot that resembles a smaller version of the veranda in Concord. Indoor, outdoor living, great event spaces to do things and hold concerts, things to go to like escape rooms, great restaurants, right? We are actively wanting people to come to Suisun to experience these things. That is what we are envisioning. Envision houses that are like Lawler apartments on steroids that eventually condo convert to provide a different type of ownership to this community. I could sit here and go through this city manager vision, but it's really hearing from you in the community that's part of this process to make sure when we get this final plan that we are going to run with in those phases you mentioned, Councilmember Osom, that we do it in a way that the adjacencies of these types of developments next to each other work, the timing works, and then the money works to it all. And so what I'm telling you is we're creating a blend of better property tax, higher income levels in this community, increased population, and increased sales tax out of that, which ultimately means the revenue numbers I just mentioned start to grow exponentially as these things get built. But that takes time. I could start this process today and probably wouldn't get through phase 1 for 2 or 3 years. Then it's going to be another 2 or 3 years to phase 2 and so on and so forth. It is really needing that 7 to 10 year window to fully see it out. Now the good news is as these things grow and we develop, we make money along the way. So that's a great thing. But it's going to take time. And it's going to take time because we're going to do it right. That's why we hired the consultants we hired. That's why we're going through the process and the pacing we're doing. I can tell you, I cannot go any faster. it would be unfair to the council and the community if we were to try to rush this through just so we can say we had it done before the election. That would not be fair to the longevity. Remember, we talked about at the State of the City, at the budget hearings, we want to do this for decades, not years. And I applaud this council for thinking in that way. As I talk to all of you in my individual meetings, conversation is about decades. Conversation is not about years. And I think that switch in mindset is the best thing that could have happened right now. And is that hard? Yes. Does that sometimes take more time than we want? Potentially. But in the end, the outcome is going to be something that's sustained and is resilient. So we don't have this conversation every 5 to 7 years. And if you look back on Suisun's history, that's exactly what happens. We do something, we solve the problem, we put a Band-Aid on an artery wound, and then we're having the same conversation 5 years later. That has to stop. That has to stop, or we are honestly just buying time for us to eventually cut back to the levels I talked about earlier. So I hope that helps articulate a little bit of that vision, Councilmember Olson, but it really is a process that will go as fast as we can between now and December to eventually have the community see and have input on that process as well.
Well, thank you so much, because it gives us a lot more confidence now. No? If only, these are the things that I believe the residents should hear. Yeah, because something has already been done, it is still being done, and a lot more actions will be taken. So if we could more or less list it down and make it public all the time, then the confidence level will be there. Because you're now looking at a timeline based on what has already been done, being done, and supposed to be done, especially with the help of Measure S. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. I have Councilmember Dawson, and I'd like to go to the members of the public. There's a member online who's been waiting patiently as well.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just make this quick. About a month or so ago, we had a joint committee meeting with our Measure S committee, and the conversations that we had in regards to the oversight and allowing them a little bit more oversight and making recommendations, and them serve less as an advisory, but more in a larger capacity. I know as we were going into moving forward with the Measure S, that was a conversation. And I think it's really important as we move forward that that is the message, and that we need to really kind of come back and bring that back and fully vet that out of what that looks like, and where we're going to take our Measure S committee is they're going to be very instrumental in us moving this forward and being that citizen oversight. So I just wanted to not forget that we need to still have that conversation, and I think it needs to be sooner than later. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to City Clerk for public comment.
I have George Gwynn, followed by Donna LeBlanc.
Good evening once again. As someone that's been quite active in the past in Prop 13, I think that there are people in government, I'm not saying that's the case necessarily with this council, that have gone overboard to put a lot more money in government's hands than the public. And it got to the point that a lot of people were about to lose their home, and fortunately, Prop 13 saved that. But with the present governor, I think there's a possibility it might go back in the former direction again. And that's something you guys need to be cognizant of, because if you have a structure that takes private property away and puts it all in the hands of the government, that's not such a good deal. And the other thing I would like to say is that my AA and BA was in mathematics, and I went back afterwards and took all but about 3 accounting classes to have a second BA. But other things came up, and I never did finish that. But it doesn't matter how much money you got, it needs efficiency in the spending. And the ideas that you put forth, because any kind of business or any kind of operation, you have to balance the expense with, the money that, you get coming in as, revenue. And, if that gets out of balance, they have problems. So I hope in, your, creation of more taxes, it doesn't get to where it's lopsided. Should be something that's reasonable for everybody, so. So far, things are moving along well, but I just want to make sure they continue because, I was not thrilled with what happened with the fire department a while back under a different regime. It was getting to be too expensive, as far as buying equipment and other things that, weren't a problem before, because it doesn't matter how much money you got to be efficient with it, even if it's small money. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anna LeBlanc, followed by Michelle Chavez.
Okay. I'm gonna ask if I can have a little extra time, because I think this is very important, and I think what I need to say cannot be accomplished in 3 minutes. So if you would like, I will let all other members of the public talk, and then I can talk after them.
Go ahead, this is an important conversation. Go ahead.
Okay. So, first of all, I'm gonna start out that I commend all of you. You are all here for the reasons that I saw in you way back when. Don't let anyone push you around. And, it's a public job. You're gonna get it. I used to work for IRS. I got it every day too. So, I still get it, and I don't even work there. You did 2 amazing things so far. The things that we, the public, have been asking for years. We have a new city manager. We have a new city attorney. You all listen to us. I don't know if the rest of the public understands how long Michelle, Steve, George, myself, James, and a few other people, Brian, have been trying to say, this is what's going wrong. Please hear us. You're the only council that has actually done that, okay? And look how far we're coming. Yeah, we're in the middle of a fiscal emergency. I think, honestly, that you should go ahead and declare it today and not fiddle fart around with it, quite honestly. You can always take it back if the measure passes. Or you can leave it in, even if the measure does pass. Measure S is not going to solve the problem. It really isn't going to solve it. It's going to delay the problem. But we have to, as Mr. Osham said, have to have an economic thought plan ahead. Things don't happen overnight. We talk about having the logistics center, which I don't even like the idea of, but I know our city has to have it if we're going to, survive the next generation. That's not even going to be built for 5 to 7 years. So that $2.1 million or whatever is not coming into our treasury right away. That's 5 to 7 years down the road. What I see happening all the time, I wrote a bunch of notes, and I'm not even going to say them. I'm just telling you from my heart. What I see happening in the past has now affected today. We need to make sure from today forward that we have a plan and we stick to it. I can't express to the public, I know you're out there. I know you hear me. You've heard me for the last 5 or 6 years. When I tell you something is going to happen, or I tell you something is a fact, please believe me. Don't believe the people out there who are spreading doom and destruction, incorrect information. Our city manager does not make $530,000. I have said that so many times that I don't even want to repeat it again, okay? For those naysayers that are out there that are belittling this council and belittling our city, I say show up. Come here and show me what you say is true, because it's not. I'm telling you right now, if this Measure S does not pass, we are in trouble. Measure S will end as it is today in June 30th, 2026. Almost all of our police officers and almost all of our fire department is paid from Measure S. If Measure S ends and doesn't get passed and go forward, we will not have a police department. We will not have a fire department. And at that point, we will not be Suisun City any longer, because we cannot protect our residents. The Measure S has got to pass. This is not a joke. It's not goofing around. It's not you being the mom telling your kid, I need a $5 raise, and saying, well, then go scrub the kitchen sink to get a $5 allowance raise. This is being, our city needs millions of dollars. It takes all of us, every 29,000 plus people, to protect our city, to get out there and pass this measure. Whether we like it or not, if we are going to survive, we will not do it without Measure S. Measure S has to pass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, followed by Steve Ulrich.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to speak in favor of this resolution. I'm also in line with Donna LeBlanc and her thoughts. I think this resolution with the amendments that were just discussed is a good way to go. I think I believe, what has been discussed with the city, the residents will get behind the Measure S when they get hopefully, if everyone gets on board as far as the education and understanding of what Measure S will do, what things, the economic development plans. I think knowing and understanding about the Measure S will be a big deciding thing. Also knowing what the city intends to do will be really helpful. Also knowing as we go forward, going into a fiscal emergency, what exactly might be happening, what's going on. Also, too, I'm wondering if I was trying to be self-educated before I came in today about a fiscal emergency. What does that look like? So one of the things that I thought of is whether or not cities like Vallejo, Oakland, and Stockton could be used as a resource, perhaps. Maybe what they looked at, what they would do different looking back after going through their fiscal emergencies or their bankruptcies. What would they have done differently? What would they advise us? What things could maybe they see that we're not seeing? But I do want to speak in favor of this resolution, and I hope that it passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Ulrich, followed by Thomas Kimmon.
Yes, I'm in favor of the resolution as well. I'm a realist, not a pessimist, I'm a realist. The only way you get results is look at the bottom line, the reality of where we're in now. The reality here in Suisun has been suppressed and denied for 3 or 4 years. We got that $7 million ARPA fund, and our last 2 mayors ignored that and thought that was success. It didn't have to develop business. We brought in a huge apartment complex, low income, and an STA building. 2 great, magnificent buildings, but they're both tax exempt. And we did nothing to bring in revenue during the last 4 years. And Mayor, I don't agree with your numbers adding up. You've been mayor for almost 2 years. You're on the council for 4 years. So you were back there in the beginning as well. But anyway, Mr. Preble, I salute you for tonight. The reality, this should have been presented 3 years ago, we've been misled. I think with you and the 4 council members, this can be done, but we're gonna bleed, even in the best case scenario. And I think Measure S, unfortunately, may have to fail and you make the cuts. And I think this apathetic public we have here may have to see what reality's like, and then you will get your measure. I hope not. I hope I'm wrong. I hope this thing does pass. But some of the members here that lost credibility on our Measure S are still here. And to be honest with you, it's going to be a matter of trust from the public. I don't know where that's going. And the business. Oh, if you want to succeed, I recommend appoint Mr. Olson as deputy city manager. With his business idea with yours, we can't lose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thomas, followed by Tom LeBlanc.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to. First thing, to the point of a fiscal emergency. I'll just speak to the emergency part. I think I have some education in that area that I can relate to. Basically, the definition of emergency does not change if the building was on fire or checkbook's empty. If the problem before you is greater than the resources you have the availability to correct it, have an emergency. Just that simple. Doesn't matter what kind of emergency it is. I think the qualifying arguments are there. I'm not going to tell you to vote for Measure S because I know you're already going to vote for it. But I have been talking to other people and I have a good argument and presented with good information. So it's just a matter of all of us going out and beating the streets on this. That's what it's going to take. As for when you want to make this declaration, you hired the right guy. I would, if I hire an expert, I tend to follow the recommendations of your 2 experts is when the best time to pull that trigger. I think you're already cocked and ready to go. It's just a matter of when. So, that being said, the other thing I have to say is thank you for finally getting it. I think we're on the right trail. And I appreciate every one of you. Have a great evening. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Good evening. I can't for the life of me understand why the public isn't here, why the public isn't listening, why the public isn't getting involved. You made very good points. I'd like to know if we know how many owner-occupied houses exist in Suisun City. Is that the reason? How do we reach the public? We haven't come up with the answer yet, obviously. We're Zooming, we're holding public meetings, we, the city, y'all. We're holding a meeting. Is it illegal to soapbox? It's still illegal to soapbox. Can I go down there with a bullhorn? Start soapboxing down in some of the malls? How are we going to reach the people? That's what you need to find out. Because I'm with a couple of people here, I'm for Measure S, but I don't think it's going to pass. Simply because people are not involved. It doesn't affect them until it fails. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Tom was my last.
Okay. We do have a couple of members online, so if any, this is a good time to start raising hands to get in speaking order. If you have called in, you can press *9 to get queued, and then you'll press *6 to speak. So one moment while I set up a virtual clock here, and then I'm going to bring members online. I'm going to start with Elizabeth B. One moment. So Elizabeth, I'm gonna bring you on. Hold on while I share the screen with the timer. The timer is set at 3 minutes and the floor is now yours.
Okay, I just wondered, do we know for sure that the Measure S is going to be on the ballot? Has that been determined already?
We will take all questions and they will all be answered once we've taken all public comments. The time is still yours.
All right, and I'm sure that, people are going to be worried about all the increase. I was at the water meeting last night and there's an increase in the water too. But I'm sure they would understand, that we need police and fire. But I'd like to know also what happened with the tractor supply. I thought that was supposed to raise some revenue, but I've been in there and there's nobody in the store. Don't know what happened with that. I wrote a piece on the next door neighborhood and everybody was really interested. And the day after that, they came out with something that they weren't going to support the LGBTQ community. And it just, it torpedoed. People wanted to go there. But then when they heard that, they didn't want to go there. I understand from the water meeting last night that the city owns the lot on Marina and Highway 12. And they're looking for a master builder for that to come and make a development. Not sure what is being looked for, maybe a shopping center, I'm not really sure. I'd like to get some more information on that. But I think the thing that saved us before was Walmart and I don't know what kind of things are being looked at besides Measure S. I mean, I think it's a great idea. And I certainly intend to vote for it. I'll try to, tell other people to vote for it. But what else are we gonna do? I didn't run for city council because I don't know how to do this. And I was hoping, maybe I just haven't heard what the other plans are. So is it on the ballot? People are concerned with the water increase and the tax increase. I know they're going to be concerned, but they want to support. I think most people want to support their city. What are the ideas for raising revenue? Have you gotten anything out of Tractor Supply? Anything about master builders on Marina and Highway 12? Those are the questions.
Thank you. That is time.
Thank you.
The next person I'm bringing on is Lydiette Dardone. I'm going to share the screen with the clock. We have resetting to 3 minutes. 1 moment. Resetting to 3 minutes, and the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. Yeah, I'm with Tom LeBlanc. He said exactly what I wanted to say. What I would like to say to the community, if you're listening, or if you listen later, or if you read later what's going on, if you don't vote for Measure S and we lose our police department and fire department, our amount of our housing our homes that we own, they are going to completely go down in value if this city becomes with no police department, no fire department. If we lose out on those two things, we can forget about ever reselling and hoping for any kind of profit in this city. We have to vote yes on Measure S. Hopefully there's a way for you to resend out. I think you sent out a mailer once. I don't remember positively, but I do believe that another mailer needs to go out to every single home in Suisun, so that they know exactly what they are going to be voting against if they don't vote yes for Measure S. We have to vote it this this measure in. Like you said, city manager, it's only a few cents to the dollar. And at this point, we have nothing to lose, but everything to gain. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'm bringing on Lito Santos. One moment while I share the screen, resetting to 3 minutes, and the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. And I just want to make sure we're gonna do this right. Can we just do the emergency fiscal emergency tonight? So I think it's better to be done tonight. And I just want to let everyone know that I'm gonna be campaigning for the passing of Measure S. I started this already probably a month ago, and I have my ways to get people involved, and then I'll just make sure everybody is on the same page. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Looking to see if there's any other hands raised. Seeing none, that concludes public comments. I'm bringing it back for some of the questions to be answered. Turning over to City Manager. There was a question about, well, I can answer this. Did we know for sure if this measure will be on the ballot? The answer is yes. This council voted to move this ballot, the Measure S, onto the ballot on July 2nd. That was when we voted for that at that time. The next question is, what happened with Tractor Supply? And I don't know if you can address this.
So Tractor Supply, we had a slight delay in when it originally opened. There was just, PG&E was overloaded with the amount of connections they had to do in the area. We were able, through good dialogue with the community development director, council members, and myself, to kind of get it opened in July. And so it is now moving forward. I am not allowed by law to give any results on what that is or isn't generating relative to the city, except that it is definitely a positive entity to have relative to our revenue needs.
Thank you. And then there's a question around the property near Marina and Highway 12. That's really referring to the 34-acre site. So when you hear, members of the public, when you hear us say the 34-acre site or the 30-acre site, this is the site we're referring to. It's across AM/PM. It's off of Highway 12 and Marina. And if you can, the question is, what is being looked for, like a shopping center? What other things are being looked at?
So think less shopping center and think, again, this is what Cosmont will do with the community and council to find what that could be and what value it would bring. I want the public to think more entertainment zone than shopping center. So think, I come there, I go to a great wine bar outside, I have an area where my kids can play while I'm there and enjoying night with friends or a date night with significant other. I also have really great stores that I can go to shop a lot of things locally that I have to go to other cities for right now. Think about, again, outdoor concert possibility. And this isn't or, this is and, because of how big it is. Outdoor concert venue to bring in people. Think of escape rooms, things like that, which really would bring people to stay, eat, and enjoy Suisun on a more regular basis, along with some kind of comparable housing in that area. So think like a mixed-use development. If you've been to Emeryville, if you've been to the Veranda in Concord, these type of entertainment zones that are also retail is the image we're doing, because that filters from that 34-acre lot all the way downtown as we start to work with private businesses and other city-owned property to develop in a very similar manner where, again, we create people wanting to be here, feet on the ground, and stay and shop and play basically in Suisun City is the high-level vision I could give for that area as it filters through the city.
Thank you. Okay, the rest were comments or statements from the public. Thank you so much to everyone who has been engaging in this conversation. This is so important. All of us, you can see this is this council stands unanimous, and we voted unanimously to put this tax measure on the ballot. And there is, just to clear some of the misinformation out there, there's Councilmember Paul talked about members thinking that we're raising taxes because we're going to get paid more. I can tell you that the mayor makes $5 more than the council members. The council receives a stipend of $600 for service on this dais. The mayor makes $605. If members receive a travel stipend, it's a $400 travel to help us get everywhere that we need to go, to all the meetings with the public and conferences and all of those pieces. And so it's very actually nominal in regards to being able to be of service. This is 100% public service of heart. Most of my colleagues have full-time jobs. One has 2 jobs to be able to be of service. I heard someone make the statement, I am committed to campaigning for this measure. So am I. And in order to do that, because this role is actually full-time, the stipend is $605, but the role requires full-time work. And because of the ability, in order to look for the opportunity to get out on the streets, and as Mr. LeBlanc was asking, how are people going to know? It's knocking on doors. It's telling them and going everywhere. In order for me to do that, I borrowed against my future self and liquidated some of my future retirement in order to take the next 6 months of my life to not have to worry about my job, but to 100% hit the pavement and knock on doors and talk to people and go to locations and go to community locations where people can ask the questions directly about why this is so important. I believe so strongly as the mayor and the leader of this city. It is my duty, my responsibility to get out there, and it comes at a personal sacrifice. Of course, all of us have personal sacrifices because of our families and our jobs, and we believe incredibly how important this is to ensure that the community understands what this is really about. It's not about us. It's about our community as a whole and the future for all of you. And many of my colleagues have children and their children. So this is what it's really about. Well, I'm going to bring it back because I heard Vice Mayor Washington had a really good idea around the opportunity to kind of find this middle ground that I really appreciated. I appreciated Councilmember Dawson being very clear around this is important, this is what it means. I appreciate my colleagues hearing my own concerns. So finding a middle ground is exactly what I think is an appropriate pathway forward. So I'll turn it over to Vice Mayor Washington.
So I move that these events and circumstances.
Sorry, Vice Mayor, I just have one clarifying question for Brett. The one thing the residents are saying is, Fairfield PD or sheriffs can take us over and it'll be cheaper. Can you just put that on the record and kind of clarify that, please?
Yeah, so I have experience in doing this. I was in the CEO's office at Napa County. We were the contract police department for City of American Canyon and City of Yountville. I can tell you back then, and it's only gotten worse, typically it's 30-40% more expensive to have the sheriff come in and do your police and a neighboring city to come and do your fire. The other piece of that that's very important is once you pull it away, you no longer have the ability to negotiate anything. And if their costs go up because of whatever reason, it is absolutely every year coming down to you. So some people have said, well, the retirement costs they don't go away, they just stop for that one group. And that liability is still 15, 20 years out before we see that curve change. And the problem is the cost increase almost offsets the benefit of annual savings related to the pension. So it is not cost effective to contract out when you've already had an established police and fire department.
And the second question is, it's if they're willing to take us, right? Do they have to? I don't know this. Can you clarify?
They do not have to take you by law. If we were to disband a police department, and to police officers listening, that's not what I'm saying to do. Essentially, the sheriff has an obligation in that to respond to calls relative to the area, but you would become a quasi sheriff zone of like one deputy going when a call's made. You're not having patrol or community policing or anything on, that's his legal mandate if we did not have a police department.
Thank you. And I want to apologize to the Vice Mayor, so thank you.
No, and if I may, just to add to the clarification, because there was a comment about the city of Fairfield absorbing, the city of Fairfield at their State of the City named the fact that they had a $13 million deficit at this time. And if nothing changed, by next year they would be at a $22 million deficit. No one is in that position to just take up cities. We're all on the same boat. And they themselves are taking two tax measures to the ballot to their residents. So this is really, for us, it's really about thinking Suisun, being proud of Suisun, and honoring who we are as Suisun City residents as well. So I'll defer now to Vice Mayor Washington.
Thank you. So I move that these events and circumstances threaten and are projected to adversely affect the public peace, health, safety, and welfare, and because of that threaten to the public peace, health, safety, and welfare, an emergency exists in the city, as the term emergency is used in Article 13, Section 2B of the California Constitution. The city must immediately address that emergency by ensuring that the city has the resources necessary to preserve the public peace, health, safety, and welfare. Accordingly, the City Council unanimously finds and declares the existence of a fiscal emergency within this city, as shall be effective on November 8th, 2024, by resolution.
Microphone, please. Microphone, please.
That's in addition to resolution number 2024 in our packet.
In addition to resolution 2024 in our packet.
Okay, it's, that item has been motioned. I'm looking for a second.
Can I, excuse me, Mayor, can I explain, because I'm not.
We have a motion on the floor.
Okay.
So you can either, at this point, I'll look into the city attorney for procedure, but we have a motion, so I'm looking for a second, and then we can open it up for discussion.
Okay.
I will give that second.
Okay, so it's been motioned by Vice Mayor Washington, seconded by Councilmember Dawson. We will go into discussion. Councilmember Osum.
Okay. Image to me is very important. If we adopt this resolution now, what's going to happen is we're presenting an image that it really is going to happen, that this Measure S will not pass. And for that reason, I think the image we're going to present when we adopt this resolution tonight is it's seemingly a hopeless case. No? And for that, I cannot vote for it.
I am seeing the city attorney shaking his head no to your statement. If you can help clarify to Councilmember Osum really what we are declaring.
Oh, well, I'm not shaking no to his statement. I'm just, that the motion, the resolution has to be unanimous. That's what.
If I could provide some clarifying facts to help, maybe. So, Councilor Member Osum, from the city manager's perspective, a fiscal emergency is not stating a hopeless case. What it is identifying very clearly, very directly to our residents, is that without additional revenue, that we would get through a vote on November 5th by our citizens, we are in a situation where grave and drastic measures will be taken in order to ensure the balanced budget of the city, which means a minimum of $7 million in cuts will happen. And we will take 26 to 28% of the service delivery and budget away from this community, which was already probably 80% of what it should have been. So you're taking a 80% service delivery probably down to like 60% citywide. And so this is the official action to essentially tell the public, if we don't get a vote, we are going to take strong and severe action to ensure that we balance our budget moving forward.
Well, is it possible to cross the bridge when we get there? Meaning, what is to prevent us?
So can you? Okay, so let's be mindful and okay, Councilmember Osum, you just stated what is to. What did you just state? I was going to answer.
No,
Oh.
Measure S doesn't pass.
Well, what we're doing right now, okay, what we're doing right now is saying we are ready to pass that resolution if Measure S doesn't pass. So what we're saying is, if Measure S passes, we're not doing this. If Measure S doesn't pass, we're ready. And that's all we're doing. That's all we're doing tonight. All we're saying is that we are ready. As we heard from members of the public, I heard from members of and my colleagues, is if we wait too long, right, that there might be an issue. There was a concern of we might not be able to pass after that ballot if it fails. We might come back and not have, and then we're in serious trouble. So what would happen is if we don't put this in place now, we could be in more serious trouble with the members of the community who are trusting us right now to make the right decision on their behalf, which is to be ready to pull that lever if Measure S doesn't pass. That's really what, if Vice Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's really the essence of your motion.
Yeah, no, I think that's why we're making the effective date in November instead of immediately, so that if the measure doesn't pass, then we'll already have the resolution adopted and we can proceed from there. If it does pass, then we can rescind the we can rescind the resolution.
So couldn't we wait till the election before that resolution is made?
Councilmember Osum, your microphone, please.
Yes. Well, I couldn't understand why we couldn't wait. I mean,
I also have
on the
Vice Mayor
resolution to
Washington.
be, because it could be part of the agenda after the elections. So couldn't we wait? What is the mandate? What is forcing us to do this resolution now?
So there isn't a mandate to do it in November, but I think the goal is to put the public on notice as to what the situation in the city is if the measure fails, and that if it does fail, then we need to take drastic action.
So Vice Mayor Washington has her light on.
Mr. Olson, while I appreciate attempting to protect the image of Suisun City, I think we would not be doing due diligence if we didn't proactively protect Suisun City in totality. By us unanimously passing this today, we are showing the public that we are ensuring that we take public safety very serious in the form of Measure S. We are doing our due diligence today to prevent Measure S from failing and signaling to them that if we don't pass this tax measure, we will have to cut $7 million out of public safety funds. I understand the hesitancy to declare potential failure, but what we are doing is we are ensuring that we do not fail to the public, and we are ensuring to our staff that they will continue to have their jobs. I think it's important, especially with potential elections and the changing of this dais, that we stand together to hold firm what we've created together by having this vote unanimous with us collectively. Especially when we are campaigning, it's important that we show that we take public safety very serious. If any of us digress in that manner, that will be very detrimental, not just to us and our image, but to the public at large.
We have Councilmember Dawson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just, this is directed towards Councilmember Osum, because you're bringing up questions of concern. What's your resolution are you trying to propose here? Because we're all trying to unanimously come to a decision, but you seem to have a different opinion.
Well, my position is it hasn't happened yet. Why do we need to adopt this resolution as if there's no other way but for it to happen?
So the premise is off of
Yep.
what you're saying. So you're saying, you said this hasn't happened yet. 100%, we agree. We all agree this hasn't happened yet. We're on the same page there. So what we're saying is, we all agree it hasn't happened yet. But in case it does, we're not wasting any time, we're ready. And what we're trying to tell the community is, we are foreseeing the necessity that if it doesn't pass, we absolutely need to move forward. We're serious. So that is really what we're doing. I'm actually, I'm not following your argument nor your premise about that it's that we're not on the.
And also because why couldn't we wait for the ballot results? Why do we have to be ready now to adopt it?
If I could give a little more technical clarity. So I had this happen in a former city I was at. The election for a measure that ultimately failed was too close to call election night. And so, city attorney, I think it's 10 days or 14 days after the election before it's certified. So we are getting down into Thanksgiving at that point before we would truly know if it was that close of an election, if something passed. And I think we're starting to waste a lot of time to the council members' discussion. And I think for me as your city manager, clarity is very important when I go to move. And this provides me clarity to say, essentially whatever happens November 5th, if it passes, I come back and rescind it and we move on to the game plan. If it fails, then I immediately start putting in the steps for a March special election, which seems like a long time, maybe, Councilmember Osum, but it is, with Christmas and everything else, that is not a lot of time to get all of the ducks in a row relative to getting a March ballot and enough public information to let them know we need them to come back and do this for us. And so, to the point is, if this box is checked already, which it appears generally that's what I'm hearing from most of the council members, we then don't have to waste the administrative time of coming back and doing it again. And again, with the way elections pan out, the time, the days, the weeks relative to staff and working with the county to get this on the ballot is going to be very important. And so I think this provides us the most efficient and effective way for us to essentially prepare for what could be a negative result November 5th.
Well, thank you. That changes my perspective, no? Because now, the action to be taken immediately after the ballot, I thought we still have time to work on another move. Well, thank you so much for clarifying that. My of the council.
Thank you, and I appreciate everyone's patience. And this is what democracy is all about: is ensuring that if there is confusion or if someone doesn't understand someone else's argument or premise, that we actually talk about it. Okay, and that's exactly what just happened. We're just talking about it. Okay, and so if that explanation is helpful to you, then what I still have, City Clerk, is a motion by Vice Mayor Washington, seconded by Councilmember Dawson. Roll call.
Vice Mayor Washington,
Aye.
Councilmember Dawson,
Aye.
Osum,
Aye.
Hall,
Aye.
Mayor Hernandez.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. We did good, team. We did good. All right. So with that, hold on one moment. With that, I would like to adjourn tonight's meeting in the memory of Candy Pierce, as requested by Vice Mayor Washington this evening. So we are adjourning tonight at 8:07 p.m. That is all that we have this evening. Thank you so much for everyone who's been online this entire time. All of you are here, and there's much, much more work taking place moving forward, but I am confident that together we will do really great things for Suisun City. Thank you.